Okay, all right. So the listeners don't know this, but we actually had to restart because I fucked up. Anyway, this is Real Talk Beyond the Headlines. Hashtag Rtbth. Occasionally, myself, Tunde, I do a podcast with people that I think are in good positions, who have some insights to share, who can elevate our consciousness. Okay, maybe not on that level, but it's called the Where Are They Now segment. I've done this a couple times with other people. I'm still iffy on the name. I don't know, but it communicates the point of the podcast, which is that we want to talk to people who are still trying to, set the foundation for greatness for themselves in the future, who are working to transcend and ascend to new heights of accomplishment and, insight into their particular fields, and just basically trying to do big things, who are doing big things and are going to do bigger things. Today, I have Kim Thompson on. What's up, Kim?
Yo, what's up, Tunde? How you doing, man? Thanks for having me on.
I appreciate you keeping with the just started the podcast vibe, even though
it's all good, man. Like, I've been in DJ sets before where I'm playing the music and all of a sudden I mess up and stop the music. It's like, well, just hit play again. And you know what? Nobody knows. So let's just keep going.
Right. Okay. So as I said the first time, by the way, Herschel Ehi, they are not with us. They are not with us on the podcast. They are my co-hosts. Shout out to the homies. This is, like I said, Rtbth interview with Kim Thompson today. And like I said the first time, this is a 3-pronged podcast. The first is DeepTech. The second is Spclk of Spclk Music. And the last is Kim Thompson. And you're an individual that I've known for a couple years, and you brought me under your wing when I was I was exploring some new things in life. I hope that doesn't sound weird. I was living in a new city and I needed to make some friends, and Kim brought me under his wing, but we're not going to go there right now. We're going to start off with DeepTech. Tell us about DeepTech, Kim.
So yeah, man, DeepTech, it started as a response to what was going on in DC at the time. There were a lot of, really cool, like quote unquote cool parties going on, and certain people that we were affiliated with were kind of getting left out of it. So it was a response into, basically to give people that we knew a platform to perform. So that's how it started, and that's always kind of been the vibe of DeepTech, and don't get me wrong, we book high quality talent, but we look for people who are kind of up and coming, or people who we know are good, but for whatever reason they really haven't had a chance to shine, and we provide that platform so that people can shine in that way. And DeepTech itself, it is technically a genre of house techno music, so that's mainly what we do, house techno, things in that realm. But for us, it's more so the vibe and the brand, so the whole logo around it. We have a brand here in DC, we have a brand out in San Diego, and so that's how we operate. That's what DeepTech is in a nutshell.
Okay, thanks for telling us that. I was exposed to DeepTech the first time, I guess maybe before it became DeepTech on the Potomac, but I was at Party on the Potomac, which is a boat party that you ran with Wayne. Wayne is the grandfather of DeepTech, would you say?
Yeah, he's the father, man. He's the old head. He's like the Yoda of DeepTech.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the vibe he gives off too, man. Like he's just like ascended in consciousness.
In a way. and we all have that. We all have ways where we're like, things that we excel in, and we have things that we need to work in, so need to work on. But no, Wayne is like he's the founder and the head of DeepTech. Yeah.
And so Wayne started Party on the Potomac. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. So he started Party on the Potomac even before DeepTech. One thing that I have to give Wayne is he's sort of a visionary. So he's able to sort of like see things before they exist. And that's a big thing, man, in life. Anything that you want to do that's valuable, you have to see it before it exists, and you have to go through like the learning curve, and you have to go through the failures and the disappointment and keep pushing. So he started Party on the Potomac maybe did like, 3 to 5 parties a year for 5 years and got that brand to a level, to a point where, it was a known thing, made t-shirts for it, had a logo and everything. So he got it to a point where it was something that was valuable and something that was desirable, to where, you posted like, oh, you're going to the party on Potomac party, and you knew what you were going to get. You knew the sort of quality, the service, the value you were going to get for paying your little $20-$30, whatever it costs, But yeah, he started that.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So I went to Party on the Potomac, I guess probably May 2018 or sometime, like I want to say late spring, early summer or something. I thought it was excellent. It was super fun. This was probably a couple of months after I met you, which we will get into a little bit later when we talk about Kim Thompson, but we're still talking about DeepTech right now. I thought it was super fun. DJs playing music, there was a rotation. I think you had a set, which I have enjoyed your sets. When I was at bars, I think you tap into electronic music that I really like. And I don't know too much about electronic music, but somehow you know what I like. So shout out to you, Kim. So as I was saying before, I was like very impressed with the fact that there could be a boat party and like a DJ party, people are playing electronic music. It's fun. People are like dancing and having a good time. I'm like, that seems like a lot of logistics going on into that sort of event, the Party on the Potomac. So can you tell us a little bit about that part? Because I know you're heavily involved with DeepTech, and back then Party on the Potomac, now DeepTech on the Potomac. I know you're heavily involved there. You're not just a DJ, but you're kind of like you're a handyman for all of the DeepTech operations.
Yeah, man, I have to do it all. I'm glad that you bring that up, because, most people, they see the fun, right? So they see have a good time, go out to the boat party, meet your friends. But what they don't see is all the work that does go into the back end. I mean, that's for anything, especially in this business, because it is a business, the music business and sort of the like EDM world. But yeah, for these boat parties, man, the planning starts months in advance. So, it's like, okay, you're going to do a boat party in June. You need to be talking to, whoever you're planning it with in December, January, February. And you need to put a down payment on the boat probably around that same time frame, And you need to think about who you're going to book as far as your DJs, whether it's going to be local openers or, if you're going to book somebody from out of state, out of town, out of country, which we have, you got to think about what's your ticket price going to be? How are you going to recoup your costs? How are you going to make money? How are you going to manage expectations? What happens if it rains? All these sorts of things. And then, the day of is really when, the shit hits the fan, because it's like, okay, the party's here. You have to have all the equipment ready. The boat doesn't have anything. They bring the liquor, the boat, and, a little security and people to, a captain, basically, and
right.
the bartenders. So as far as like the crowd, managing who gets on the boat, that's all in-house that we have to do. So we got to bring the sound, we got to bring the speakers and the subwoofer, the DJ controller, all the equipment, all the cables and stuff. We have to set that up while simultaneously getting people onto the boat, making sure that they had a ticket, making sure they pay, at the dock, whatever the case is, making sure they're not too drunk getting on the boat, make sure that they know how to comport themselves once the party's going, then breaking down the party, getting all that stuff off the boat on time, getting it loaded up into your car, taking it back home. So there are a lot of phases that go into it. But, working with someone like Wayne, and then, I like to think I'm a smart dude, but I know how to follow instructions well. So working with somebody like him, we have it to a point where it's almost like a science. It's like, get there hour and a half early, post up in a certain location. We know that people are going to be calling us, hey, where are you guys? Where do I get on the boat? How do I do this? Do you have tickets left? So having all that ready in advance gives us an advantage, so that we show up and we know what's going to happen. You know what I'm saying? And then if like little things happen, we're prepared for them. But no, to your point, this is, I think we were talking earlier before, funny story. and this might have been the season before we met. So the season before you came on the boat party, like 2017. We're on the boat party. Things are going well. It's a windy day. So sunny, sun's out. Everybody's feeling good, but it's a little choppy. And so we have the you got to put the speakers on stands. You can't sit them down on the ground. You have to put them at ear level so people can hear correctly. So we have the speakers on, and typically what we do is say, okay, somebody watch the right speaker, somebody watch the left speaker, make sure it doesn't tip over. Which you wouldn't think it would tip over, but lo and behold, one of the guys not watching on his phone, not paying attention, and we hit a wake, and the speaker goes overboard.
God.
This is an $800 QSC, pretty top of the line speaker. It goes into the Potomac.
Is it still there?
No. So it gets better. I was at the back of the boat because I was just actually, I think, there for fun. I was promoting. So I invited a bunch of people, got a bunch of people on the boat. So I was like in the back, talking to some of my friends, and I'm looking like behind the boat, and I see this little thing that's like bobbing up and down. I thought it was like a buoy or something. It was the speaker. I'm like, what?
So no one had to even notice it. It went over.
They noticed, but it was like the boat's moving. It's too, you can't. It's not a type of boat where you can maneuver. This thing is 150 people, so you can't really maneuver to try to go back to get something like that too fast. So I ran up the stairs, and like everybody's face was shocked, and everybody's looking overboard. The boat behind us, God thank them, they went past it, tried to pick it up one time, missed it, did a U-turn. They did a 360, and then they actually got the speaker, brought it to us, and then gave it to us. So they brought us a speaker. We finished the party with the one speaker. My boy Wayne was mad at the guy who was supposed to be watching it, and he was like, oh, it was his fault. He had no excuse. Turns out, let the speaker dry, and it worked. It worked like a month later. I mean, this thing was like, Potomac is a nasty river. You don't want to go swimming in it, so
right.
The fact that speaker came out and it wasn't like mutated or, didn't have like all sorts of defect, and it worked properly, and he ended up selling it to Guitar Center and got his money back. So
wow.
Yeah.
And this is just like the basics of dealing or like of running that sort of operation.
These are things that, there's so many things between people being drunk, between dealing with bar owners and dealing with people who are on all sorts of drugs and you have no idea what they're on, and, crazy girls coming up, while you're DJing, trying to get you to play Akon. And like, when you're playing like house music, they're like, yeah, this sounds great. Can you play some Akon now? It's like, there's so many different things that come up where it's just like, you got to be prepared. You got to be solid in who you are and what you do, because you never know what you're going to meet out there. But as long as you know what you're bringing to the table, it's like, okay, I'll deal with all that because it's coming. You don't know what it is, when it's going to be, but it's coming. You just got to be, prepared in yourself, man. So
yeah,
that's what we have to do, especially with those boats, because you're right. The logistics are harrowing.
Man, well, shout out to y'all. Shout out to DeepTech. I had a good time. I'm so grateful that I was able to get into some of that kind of action when I was in DC. For the listeners who don't know, I lived in DC for a year. It was pretty much a year exactly, which is not surprising if you've lived in DC that people be coming in and out. But I would like to touch on something you mentioned earlier. And I wasn't aware of this until you just said it, but it's sort of like creating that space for DJs who aren't getting the sets at bars or venues in DC. I will say when I was on the boat for Party on the Potomac, I saw some black women DJs, and I don't even know if I've ever seen a black woman DJ before that. Like just at anything, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I'm curious, like, what do you mean by that? DC was, there's a lot of like nightlife action in DC. I feel like there's got to be some good opportunities, but maybe not. What's really good?
So I'm glad that you brought that up. And it kind of goes back really to the essence of house music, man. House and techno music, It's not anything that is, I'll put it this way. It was created by black people, mainly gay black men. You know, at the end of the day, house mainly out of Chicago was created by gay black men. It was an underground scene, you know, and it spread throughout the black community, and then it spread, you know, to Detroit and then New York, eventually over to the UK, and now we are where we are. But a lot of that gets lost in the sauce. And people who know, they know, you know, they know where it came from. They know the origins. And it's not that like it's only for black people, but it did start there. And, you know, you kind of see that lost in a lot of the dialogue. And so as far as DeepTech is concerned, we're not really, that's not our mission. It's not like we promote black DJs and black, but we do promote people who are in those underprivileged categories, because when it comes to some of the, you know, hotter nightlife places in DC, a lot of people who get booked are a lot of people who look stereotypical. You know, they look like a Martin Garrix, or they look like Anna Vici, or they look like a whoever is the DJ of the day, you know, on DJ Mag or whatever these websites, or, you know, whatever these places who decide who's who and what's what. You know, even like with Daft Punk, it's like, okay, Daft Punk broke up. I don't care, because like they didn't make an industry. They're great, you know, but they haven't made music in like almost 10 years. So it's like, what about the people who are doing something, who are like really pushing the underground and who have something to say, but they don't have the same platform because they don't look like Daft Punk. They don't put on these weird helmets, you know? So yeah, to that point, we try to look out for people, whether it be female artists, whether it be black artists, Asian artists, you know, or whoever, and even just your regular white dude, but people who, for whatever reason, they haven't found their chance to break through because they're not cool enough and they don't go to the right after parties, or, you know, they don't go to after parties because that's not their vibe or whatever. So, you know, that's sort of our vibe, you know, and a lot of those people, that's where you find a lot of good information. That's where you find a lot of hard workers, people who like appreciate it the right way. You know, you can book the top guy in the city, but a lot of times those guys have attitude and they want more money than you may be willing to pay or you may have to pay, you know, but you might be able to find somebody who's better, who has more talent, and people just don't know about it, you know. And so what ends up happening with DeepTech is we end up breaking a lot of people who are like on that cusp, you know, who are like really good. Maybe they're even producing music. So, you know, they're kind of taking it to the next level, and they just need somebody to like believe in them and give them a platform. And it doesn't take much to give somebody an hour and a half to play some DJ tracks. You know, it just takes being open to something that's outside of what you see on TV, what you see on, you know, your main Instagram feed and that sort of thing.
Right. Yeah. You know, that makes me think a couple of sets that I've been to where you played, I think I probably went to 2 in DC before I left that you played, and they were kind of like hole in the wall type bars, but I was also thinking this is like hole in the wall type music in the sense that it's like not easy to find, but when you find it, it's like freaking amazing. And, you know, it quickly becomes like your thing or your spot. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like that's kind of what you're getting at is, you know, some unique characters, unique music, and just give them a shot at, you know, playing and interacting with the listeners and having a good time.
Yeah. I appreciate that, man. It's about the vibe, right? So
Exactly.
Anybody can play, you know, the top 40 hits or what you hear on the radio. And I have nothing against that. But for me, I've always liked to, it's almost like presenting a story or a package, you know, so you can entertain people with things that they don't even know they would be entertained by, you know, and if you can find that, now you've kind of like created your own path, and you get actual people who are interested in what you do because they're interested. It's not that you played all their hits. It's like, oh, you played all my favorite songs. And I trust me, I love those nights. I love going to like a 90s throwback set. I love that vibe. We're like, ooh, like an old school like hip hop when they're really like getting into like some of that like meat and potatoes type stuff. I'm all there for it. You know what I'm saying?
Most definitely.
That's just not what I do. I let somebody else who's good at that do that, and I just, you know, stay in my lane. And we've been able to identify our lane and then stick in it. And then when you do that, you can widen that lane. You know, so we like to rather go. It kind of like fits in with the name DeepTech. We go deep. It's not wide, you know. So, you know, let's see how deep we could go down the rabbit hole of, you know, the house and techno realm, and still have people fuck with it, you know.
Okay. We're gonna have to talk about that deep connotation, because I'm still not, you know, like I'm not a huge electronic dance music listener. I love it, but I don't consume like a great deal of it. But when I am exposed to like people like you, or if I go to concerts, I'm just like, Jesus Christ, this is some amazing music. But
right.
let me actually talk about something that might not be the most pleasant, but I gotta ask you, because I would say you're a business manager. Is that a good thing to say?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, so here's an interesting thing. Like, labels are important, and what the label you put on something is going to matter, because that's what people will call it. But for people who are like your real like CEOs or bosses or whatever, a lot of times like the label that they have doesn't matter, because they are like the people who get shit done. You know, they're the people who get the work done. So, like, if trash needs to be picked up, I'm going to be the trash man for the day, you know. Or if I need to book an artist and it's going to cost $2,000, then I'm going to be like the booking agent. Or, you know, I'll be the manager, or I have to be the DJ. If nobody shows up, then like I'm the DJ and I'm the promoter and whatever. So
you're DeepTech. That's basically what you are. Just
I'm not
embodied,
because there are other people. I'm just like the D and the E, I guess, you know. And there are other people who are like the EP, but no, seriously, so, you know, we've done some sort of restructuring, because when you run an entity on like two different coasts, it becomes sort of convoluted if you try to do things in like and just lockstep on the business side. So I had to start a LLC, because we were running it under the one that Wayne had based out in Virginia. That's where he lived in the time he was in this, you know, DC, Maryland, Virginia Metroplex. So he ended that business, and I started one in DC. So now I'm running DeepTech DC LLC. So, you know, you can call me what you want. It's basically, at this point, a sole proprietorship. So I'm the boss. I'm the CEO. But
that's what I've been waiting to hear. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, like, it doesn't matter. You know, what am I the boss of? Am I the boss of something that's successful or not? You know, and if it's successful, then I don't really care about being the boss. I care more so that the success is there. So and really, go ahead.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, if I know you like I think I know you, you're very much more oriented to the community that's a part of it, and sort of giving them boss status.
I want to do parties. A lot of times I'll be doing a party and nobody will really know that it's my party. And I like that the most, because I don't want to be front and center. I want the party to be front and center. I want people to be like, man, that was a good party. I don't want people to, you know, now if they know I threw in like, wow, Kim threw a good party. Yeah, that's fine. But, you know, and that's why I like to keep, you know, my own brand of, you know, the DJ and the music separate from DeepTech, because I want DeepTech to be known as this thing. So when we go to book somebody from New York, we're talking from the aspect of DeepTech, not from the aspect of Kim Thompson, because they're not gonna know who the hell I am until they do. But I want them to know, like, oh wow, you know, they got X number of followers on Instagram. Oh wow, they booked some other DJs that I know. You know, oh, you know, they look at the artwork. Their artwork is good. So that should speak for itself, you know, not, oh, I'm the CEO, you know, because nobody really gives a damn about that. I don't.
I feel you. Yeah. Well, I mean, that is why I wanted to have you on, because I think, you know, it's called Where Are They Now? It seems like you're in a pretty unique place where you're handling a lot of the business oriented tasks associated with running DeepTech. But also the music, like you're so deeply involved with the music, and I'm sure that you still have your own life as Kim. Like I said, a three-pronged podcast. But Kim, I gotta ask you, man, you're running a business. How has the pandemic like crept in and messed with the business, which you know, everyone has been affected by it. But have you been able to even sniff Party on the Potomac?
Yeah, I took a sniff and it smells good, but it's still like a ways away. You know, it's like somebody's cooking something down the street.
Yeah.
I
Real
can
quick, real
smell
quick.
it.
Nothing since the pandemic. Like not even.
No, just virtual. So, I did DJ and it was going to be like quote unquote a DeepTech takeover, but the guys who did it they sort of dropped the ball on a lot of things. But me and one of the other DeepTech homies, his name is Brian Dotson. He goes by Otson. He's going to be one of those guys like a name to know.
Okay.
Real cool cat. He's like 27, 28. Awesome DJ. DJ's kind of like a more minimal type style. So stuff that has like a little bit more attitude, not a whole lot of melody, you know, a lot of like nice bass lines. So some real kind of groovy type stuff. But he and we played at this restaurant slash bistro slash semi type club out in Virginia. And, they do things the right way. So it's social distance. You have to have a table. It's not like, people are up dancing and doing all that. And ours was really social distance because there were only about 20 people there, and the place could legally fit about 200. So, it was like
Gotcha.
Really nothing. There was nothing going on, but it was just a chance to kind of get out, see what the scene is looking like.
Yeah.
And I will say that the scene in DC is robust. People here aren't doing anything like they're doing down in Miami and Texas and that sort of stuff. But people are willing to go to a restaurant, sit at their table with their friends, not really mingle, and just listen to the music. So we haven't really done anything as far as a live event other than, just me and my homie DJing to like an empty room. And it was actually like the day after Thanksgiving. So, nobody really wanted to come to that. But, it was a chance for us to just kind of stay fresh.
Right.
But, yeah, to your point, the beautiful thing about what we've done is we've always put the brand ahead of us being cool. So we spent the time to actually start a record label. And the record label launch party, I think, might have been like March 5th or 6th or something like that, 2020. So it was like literally the last day almost before the pandemic really just kind of set in and shut
March 11th.
out. Right.
Official pandemic by the WHO.
Is that like the pandemic like holiday? It's like, guys, like everybody
Honestly,
everybody brings out their mask and like everybody wear your mask today. Like is that what we're gonna tell our kids?
It might, it might turn
like,
into something, man.
Fuck, man. But no, seriously, like so we started that right at the perfect time because that gave us something to divert attention to. Whereas if we just had the boat parties and the physical parties at bars and stuff, then it's like, okay, now we're just doing virtual stuff. But no, we actually had music that we published, that we put out on different platforms. So now that gave us even a higher level of credibility. So now, okay, you got the parties, you got DJs, you have merchandise, and you have all this. Now we have actual music that either we produced or people that we signed have produced, and so that's really where our focus has been gaining traction in areas where it doesn't have to be in person. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Man, I mean, that's one thing I love about what you're doing and why I wanted to have you on the podcast. Also just to chat as friends, but I just love it, man. When people strive to have ownership basically, in what they do, and not to say that you should like ditch your career or whatever, you or anyone else, but I mean, if you have like passion and desires for something, like definitely try your best to really, make it viable. And I'm not just saying like just do it for the fuck of it, but like actually work hard on to make it alive and, like I said, viable, which is, that's what I'm getting from you when I see the Instagrams and you stream on Twitch and, you got the merch. I'm just like, all right, man, going hard in the paint. I appreciate that.
You got to, at the end of the day, you have one life. If you find something where you're just like, where it interests you to that point to where you can say fuck it and you can like throw some weight behind it, why not? Especially when you when you find somebody else who has that same intensity, you know, more or less. And that's what Wayne has. We randomly met at a party that I went to with like this ex-girlfriend. So like we found out about the party the day before, and somebody told us like, oh, there's a party happening. You know, you guys will probably like it. There are going to be some DJs and some drinks. And we thought it was going to be like just a little shindig. So random couple we met that day invited us to a party the next day. We show up and it's not a regular party. This is like a hobnob, you know. And when they said DJs, it's like professional DJ equipment with like 3 of the best DJs in DC. One happened to be Wayne, and the 2 other ones were these 2 other black dudes. So 3 black dudes.
Was one of them Sonic?
The other one was Sonic.
Oh, you put me on to him too.
The other one was Sonic.
His SoundCloud is crazy, bro.
Sonic is the homie, man. Like I look up to him. You know what I'm saying? Because he can dig like into like those sort of house and soul and R&B and old school funk crates.
Does he incorporate some reggae?
He incorporates pretty much anything that is like diaspora type music, man.
Wow.
So yeah, reggae and dance hall. I mean, he did it all. You know, he had a residency at Marvin, which unfortunately was a victim of COVID.
Bro,
I know.
Are you serious?
I know,
dude. That's literally the spot.
That hurt my feelings. That one hurt my like all the rest of the spots, like 18th Street Lounge, it closed down, but they're gonna come back. And to a certain extent, Marvin will probably come back in an iteration, but yeah it shut down. You know.
Oh my gosh. I don't like talking about pandemic casualties, but I brought that up because. Yeah, this dude, Sonic, he was the freaking resident DJ at Marvin for 10 years. Yeah, every month. And real quick, Kim, I got to tell the listeners, if you're not familiar with Marvin in DC, that was a spot that you bring your black friends to who are visiting DC.
His name, that's a Marvin Gaye. What more do you want?
Bro, yeah, anyway, go on. Also, RIP, it literally was the spot.
RIP Marvin, man. It was a spot, man. It's a spot where you can go and be black, and it was very tasteful. Always good music, always a good vibe.
Yeah, and Ja had a residency.
Every Monday. The Mondays were the best days to go because you knew he would be there and you knew the vibe. So it would be packed out on the inside, on the deck, everybody out smoking cigars and, you know, getting drunk, especially when it's nice weather, you know, people wearing the fly clothes, you know, people like freaking winding it on the dance floor, and it's just a whole vibe on a Monday. You know, but yeah, man, I met Wayne at a party where he was playing, Sonic was playing, you know, and we just like clicked there to the point. I mean, we're basically best friends. We drove from DC to California when he moved out there, so we did like the whole cross country trip, and you know, almost killed us running over a bear in Arizona, and like just crazy stuff that, you know, like life stuff.
Okay, hashtag fun.
Hashtag fun. But yeah, man, so it's, you know, when you find somebody who's like driven like you, who has a similar upbringing, you know, who's like a black DJ playing house music, so we're already kind of like, we're minorities, and we're even like more of a minority in a genre that black people started. You know, you kind of have that point of bond, of a bond that's like intrinsic. And then you know, you both have the same sort of mindset of like, hey, let's do something. You know, that makes something valuable.
Most definitely. That's what's up. Okay. So we've talked a little bit about DeepTech. I will post, you know, some things on the podcast's episode where people can find more DeepTech, you know, DeepTech Recordings and the artists. The Twitch is DeepTech Live. But let's talk about Spclk, which is the DJ.
All right.
Okay, so tell me, well, for the listeners, perhaps I'm glossing over some information too much. I'm having too much of a good time. You are a DJ. You've played at various bars. You played the party on the Potomac. What is your sound?
My sound, I would say, is heavily influenced by like it's kind of hard to put a stamp on it, but it's like it's a sensual sound. You know, it has a tinge of that old school because I am from Detroit. I'm from Motown, so like, you know, I'm all about a good bass line and a good melody and soulful singing. You know, but I also like that hard driving techno sound too. You know, and the sort of the wave that techno gives you. It doesn't give you a big like huge up and a huge drop. You know, it doesn't do a huge build up. It gives you a nice like flow for the night. So, you know, I got that sort of like that down south and that like that Motown type vibe, the oldie but goodie, you know, remake type vibe going. But then also that stuff that, you know, makes ladies feel it. That's a big part. Because if you get the ladies dancing and feeling it, then you get
for
the
sure.
crowd. Dudes don't matter. You know, they'll come up and they'll be like, yeah, that's a good track. You know, but if you get the girls feeling it and like rubbing their hair and stuff, then it's like, okay, yeah, now you got a party going. So
oh yeah, I feel you, bro.
That's an important thing. But that's kind of my vibe, man. Anything where I'm feeling it, it's got that nice like got some melody, but it also has some like attitude. I'm all for it.
Yeah, I think that's what I liked a lot was the melody component. Like it was, you know, like you have like a rhythm in your head, and definitely the sort of like EDM components with the beats. Not incredibly fast, if I remember correctly. And I've been to a couple spots. There's one that I'm blanking on the name, but it was a very hole in the wall type bar. But when I went, man, I must have been on one, you know, maybe had a couple shots, probably had a couple smoke it. But I was just like, oh my God, like this is a super like nice vibe. It was just like rolling, you know, with like EDM, it's like, you know, there's a sort of like beat and dance component to it. You know, like there's a, what do they call like the RPMs or whatever? Like, I guess maybe it wasn't super evident in your set. It was just like kind of like smooth, you know. Does that sound like your style?
That's what I go for. Even in my bio, you know, one of my goals is that I want people to not really be able to tell when a song begins and when it ends. You know, like you'll know it's a new song once like the actual melody switches over. But a lot of times I'll be playing a song and bring it in, and you won't know it's there until it's too late, until the song's in. It's like, wow, you know. So a lot of people, they do come up, they're like, wow, that was smooth, man.
Very.
And that's what I go for, because I want it to be, you know, sometimes it depends on the crowd, depends on the party. You know, if it's late and people want to be entertained, then you got to be a little bit more jarring. You know, the long, drawn out mixes don't really work that well. But for the most part, if it's like, you know, anywhere between 10 and 1 p.m. and you're sort of warming the crowd up, or you're getting into your groove, it is good to be like smooth and, you know, so that people can just kind of like get in there and they don't feel like rushed to do anything.
For sure. Okay, so I hate to do this again as far as the pandemic goes, but
it's all good.
It's the reality that we're in. So I want to know, like, what was DJing like before the pandemic? Like, just tell me, like, what it's like for you. How does it feel? You know, like, what is? I've never been behind, you know, the boards. You know, I've never, you know, I don't know what that's like. So give me some of that, but also tell me what it's like now in the pandemic. You do the serial mix still every day, 10 a.m.
So I was doing it every day. That's because I was furloughed off of work. So I was working in government contracting, and kind of to a point that you made earlier, it's like, you're like, you know, don't quit your job, and unless you feel like you had to. I had to. You know, it was getting to a point where I was like, I need to make a decision of if I'm going to pursue this career path, which it is a career path. It's a very, I won't say dangerous, but you know, it's an insecure one. But it is a path nonetheless.
For sure.
And so I did that. That was back in like 2019. Now, I did get a job working at Guitar Center. And it's actually the perfect place to work if you're going to be doing something like this. Because you just...
you don't say.
You get a discount. You're around all these instruments all day. You're around a whole bunch of people who know how to use them. You know, and a lot of my customers... Yeah, I've met a lot of people in this scene by doing this job. So I was furloughed back in March for almost like exactly 3 months. I think I went back to work in June. And yeah, I started doing the serial mix. Now that I'm back at work, I do it twice a week, so every Thursday, Friday. But really, the serial mix, Twitch is a big gimmick, and DJing online is kind of a big gimmick. And I understand it, and that's fine. I'll feed into it. But the main reason I'm doing it is to stay relevant for myself. Is to stay consistent and like to be on point. Because what I don't want to happen is when things do come back, which they are coming back as we speak, I don't want to be rusty. And I know a lot of DJs out here who are going to be rusty, but I want to be like ahead of where I was. I want to be able to like keep that momentum going. So, and that's what DJing is all about. It's all about momentum. It's all about understanding that the music is not supposed to stop. So, you got to have that next track ready. You got to have it ready with enough time. You got to have a plan of how you're going to bring one track in, one track out. It's almost like a game that you're playing between yourself, between your crowd, because they don't know what you're going to play. They don't know how you're going to bring the next track in. So you want to do it in a way that keeps things interesting so people stay on the dance floor, they stay enjoying themselves. It could be nerve-wracking because, if you're playing to a crowd that you don't know, you're not sure exactly what they want to hear. If you're playing, DC has a lot of, DC is unique in the fact that it's the nation's capital. So you have people who come from all over the world here. And a lot of them like house music. So there's French house music. There's, sort of like ethnic house music that you'd hear more so like maybe in the Middle East or in India. There's like a lot of melodic stuff that you would hear like in South America. A lot of percussive stuff that you would hear in Central America. So, you got to know your crowd. What do they want? Do they want drums? Do they want vocals? Do they want just banging hard techno because they're from Berlin and they just want to hear like, fingernails on the chalkboard? Like, what are they going for? And then how can you deliver that but still maintain your own style and your own dignity, and not sell out just because you're playing for a crowd? How can you be authentic, play stuff that you would normally play, but play it for the crowd so that they enjoy it too?
Man, you are breaking this down in a way I never would have thought about before. So shout out to you.
It's deep, man. It is deep. I'll tell you what, the reason I can do that is because I've paid the cost, man. So I've done boat parties, because being a DJ and doing house music is one thing, but there's a whole world of what's called open format. So that's playing your Michael Jackson and your Gwen Stefani and all that type of stuff that people just want to hear. They just want to go and get fucked up somewhere and hook up with people or whatever.
Yeah, Timmy Trumpet or whatever his name is, Tiny Trumpet.
Yeah, whoever that is. Like you know what I'm saying? So, yeah. Dude, so I did some boat parties where they paid me basically, $50 an hour or whatever. Good money just to play music, Yeah. And no stress. I don't have to organize the party, just show up and play. But for those parties, I had to play top 40 and I had to play stuff that I never play. And I had people like, do you got any of this? You got any of the baby? You got this all? I'm like, I don't have any of that stuff. I got only these 12 tracks that are by the Black Eyed Peas, to the point where people are like, man, what kind of DJ are you? You're the worst DJ I ever seen.
Damn.
I'm like, I felt defeated. It was like,
and that's because of the constraints of the venue.
That's because they need to hear stuff just to keep people's ears entertained so that they just twerk and get drunk. And what I realize is, unfortunately, not unfortunately, but that's just not me. That's not what I do. That's not the vibe I provide. And so the pandemic has been good in helping me identify, okay, what am I willing to do? What am I not willing to do? And it allowed me to say, okay, I don't have to go that route. I don't have to just be a catch-all DJ. I can really go deep into the things that bring me joy. And then what I can do is find that crowd that enjoys that and play for them. And I don't have to play for the masses, and that's fine. So it's helped me in that. And, honestly, I was going too hard, man. It's a dangerous business, especially in the house scene, because there's a lot of drugs, there's a lot of alcohol, there's a lot of late nights. So I actually stopped drinking. I haven't had a drink since July. And it's not something that I go on social media and brag about. It's not something that, I really tell people other than when they ask, hey, what are you drinking? I'm just like, okay, just give me water, ginger ale. And, eventually they're like, oh, you don't want any, we got whiskey. And I'm like, I don't really drink. But, I was going too hard. And so it's allowed me to look at that objectively and be like, that's not the person that I want to be, And I was still handling business, but now, like, I'm on a different level because my mind isn't clouded by that particular vice, So it's been great for me, man. Like, I've been able to identify the positives and dwell on those. And all the negative stuff has kind of like just, fallen off because I haven't been paying attention to it, But it's been eye-opening, It's been very eye-opening.
Okay, wow. Well, first of all, congrats on, I guess, 9 months of abstinence from alcohol.
Yeah, man.
And I actually stopped for a long time too, like 6 months, and I started drinking again on my birthday in September. But
nice. I
was just like, I drink socially. That's where it lands for me. Like, ever since I ever started drinking, it was always social, and the pandemic sort of took that away. But
took the whole social aspect out of it.
Yeah, for sure. And just real quick as an aside, I got to say this as a mental health professional, look, I love to drink. Other things have come my way, which I won't talk about right now. But I totally understand, like, substances are not always that simple, And I actually had a condition I had to get surgery for, and I started dealing with it, probably before DC, but I like finally started to like realize what it was. And when I went to the doctor, and it would hinder me from drinking, like, cause I would get in a lot of pain. I don't deal with this anymore, but I would be in a lot of pain when I drank. And then, there would be times when I just didn't want to drink, and then people would look at you like you were a fucking crazy person. Like, bro, you're not drinking, man. So
go ahead. It's crazy, man, because the whole like going out like and drinking, they're so intertwined, that it just makes sense. It's like you go to the restaurant. First thing they ask is, okay, can I get you something to drink? Assuming they bring you a menu, can I get you to something to drink? If you go on a date with the girl, a lot of times it's like, hey, maybe we should meet up and grab a drink, So it's so intertwined in our society. And I don't think that alcohol in and of itself is a bad thing, It's just that for me, it is.
Yeah. And I think that's something that gets lost a lot. I don't do this anymore. Maybe in college, and I think even in college I didn't do it, but I never would like to be that person that was like, oh, definitely you need to be drinking, or I didn't want to be like the first person someone smoked weed with, or the first time they smoked weed. I didn't want to be that person,
Right.
And I'm just sensitive to these things, particularly cannabis. Like there's a sort of, like people like to sort of like chalk it up to being just a sort of like innocuous substance.
Right.
I was like, no, it's not innocuous. It's cannabis can't cause addiction. I'm like, yes, it can.
All these things, they come with their price to pay. Everything that you do, there's a price to pay. There's no free rides, no free lunches. There's always something, even just a little minuscule thing that you have to like say. If somebody gives you something, you have to say thank you. There's always a give and a take. So when you do something, even if it's natural, even if it's cannabis or other things that come out of the ground, there's always a price you're going to pay for doing that. And so, for me, as far as alcohol, I've been paying that price since I was like 18. I'm about to be 36. So that's like half my life. Like, I feel like I've drank enough for probably 5 or 6 people's lifetimes. So it's not like I already know what the price to pay is for that. I'm not missing anything. Now, other stuff, I will do what I want to do when I want because I'm an adult, But the main thing is just knowing, okay, what's good for you in what moments, what
for sure.
works. In the DJ world, it is probably the number one downfall for these guys. I mean,
specifically alcohol?
Drugs, period.
Okay.
And alcohol is the gateway one because as a DJ, I mean, so I love the name of your segment. I don't think you should change unless you find something clever.
Yeah.
But where are they now? You know, where I was DJing every Friday at this place on U Street in DC called Local 16. So it was like a post college bar. So a lot of 23, 24-year-olds, they're just looking to try to smash something for the night. You know, and I'm downstairs kind of setting a different vibe, because upstairs he's playing, you know, all your video stuff, like, you know, Mama Said Knock You Out, and just whatever's going to get people kind of riled up and singing and all that.
You know, I did notice, sorry to cut you off, when I was in DC, there were a lot of spots that play like these basic, like, you know, sort of like the playlist of pretty much that gets all white people geeked.
No, like that's all it is. That's all, and it gets me geeked too, especially when I've been drinking. You know, it would get me crunk. So I feel it. You know, I don't. It's just not my vibe anymore. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, but the thing is, you know, I knew the owner. He was a raging, you know, I won't say raging alcoholic, but kind of an alcoholic. You know, the bartenders are there. He liked me, so he's like, hey, whatever this guy wants, get it. So I just get as many drinks as I want all night for free, get food, you know. So it's like, I'm a little local guy, and I'm basically drinking for free every Friday and getting paid. Now, you know, think about these guys who are on these festival stages with, you know, VIP and backstage. They're getting paid 20, 30, 50 grand, you know, per gig to play EDC, Las Vegas. You know, they're not paying for anything, like any drugs, any sort of women that they want, anything that falls within their purview of what they could want. All they got to do is ask somebody, and they get it for free. They don't even have to pay. So it goes to a lot of these guys' heads to a point where, you know, now they're all getting caught for, like, you know, trying to take advantage of women and, like, you know, raping women, date raping, you know, slipping drugs in people's drinks and doing all sorts of vile stuff where it's like, you know, you let the stuff go to your head and you think you're bigger than the world, you know, and it'll happen. So all sorts of cautionary tales, you know, and it starts with alcohol, because you show up to the gig, they got a bottle of, you know, whiskey back there, you're taking shots with the promoter, you know, and that just leads to not making good decisions when it comes to the other things.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So do you think that DJ culture and EDM music, people who play EDM, you think that it might be like a little bit more excessive than, you know, maybe just like an actor in LA, you know, who gets a bunch of acting gigs, has the, you know, the movies and whatnot? Like, you think EDM culture is like maybe a little bit more, you know, trippy, I guess you could say? Yeah,
here's the thing that makes sort of, it's almost like being a rock star, you know, if you don't have a band, but it's also not as much, it's not as taxing on your body, because you're like not singing, you're not necessarily jumping around as much, even if you DJ for like a 6-hour set, which a lot of these underground guys do, you know. But what your life looks like is you're always on the road, you know. So these guys they're playing these festivals, or they're playing these like clubs in these countries, and then they're hopping around. So like somebody who's from, let's say, Amsterdam, they'll come to America, and they'll do a tour. So they'll hit up New York first, and maybe they'll hit up Toronto, then they'll hit up New York, then they'll like do DC on like a Thursday because it's a smaller market. Then they'll go to Miami, you know, then they'll go somewhere in Texas, because Texas just has a shit ton of people. Then they'll go to the West Coast, you know, they'll do Chicago, they'll do Vancouver, they'll do Mexico City, and they'll do all that and fit all that in while they can. And then they'll go back home and they'll produce or whatever. They'll get a little break, and then they'll do, you know, Eastern Europe. And then they may go out to India, they may go out to Asia and hit up all these different places. So, you know, it is taxing on these guys, because they're doing all these flights. You know, everything's paid for. And again, they're not up on stage. They're not diving into the crowd. You know, they're twisting some knobs and they're throwing their hand in the air, you know, and they're drinking. But, you know, once that club night is over at 4 or 5, 6 a.m., whenever it is, now they got to either get to the next flight, try to catch a little sleep, get to the train, do whatever it is so that they get to their next gig. So it's not a life for the weary, and that's why sort of having your head on straight is important, because you're going to be on the move, and these guys, they miss stuff, It's been many times I've been at the club or going to the club, and for whatever reason, the DJ didn't make it. Their visa didn't come through. They missed their flight, something happened in their family. So, it's not as clean as it seems. Like, people don't show up a lot of times, for various reasons. The reason they give may not be the reason. So, it's a life, man. There's lots of like documentaries about it. There's lots of movies about it. And even the movies, like a lot of times movies, they like exaggerate stuff. I feel like for the DJ ones, they like don't hit the nail on the head enough. Right. Just because it's extreme,
Damn.
And I'm just like, I'm where I am now, and it's extreme for me sometimes where I'm like, wow, that escalated quickly, but it's awesome, man. I wouldn't trade it for the world, honestly.
Wow. You're dropping some bombs today, bro. I just, was just like, okay, you run a DJ set and it's cool. You play your music, throw some shots back, but you're absolutely right, man. That shit could pick up. And I just thought, what you said, like, I don't know if DJs go on tours, because a tour is like a sort of defined moment in time. You go to all these cities, but you said they play gigs, so you can have a gig pretty much every weekend of the year or every other day, probably, depending on how big you are. And so it's like there's no necessary like end date to the quote unquote tour.
Most of these guys, that's how they live their life, Now you're bigger guys. So for instance, I'd say the guy who's probably the biggest guy in the scene, his name is Carl Cox. He's a British dude. Amazing. He's like the guy I look up to,
Yeah. When you say the scene, are you talking house or EDM?
Yeah, house.
Okay.
Yeah. EDM. So, it's interesting that you use that term because.
Oh, is that a noob term? Am I showing myself?
It is the noob term. One of my homies, he plays house now, but he plays. His main thing is drum and bass, which is kind of like it's a faster beat per minute, almost has like a hip hoppy type vibe to it. Very big in the UK. So he came from that world and started coming to our events. He just liked our vibe and everything, and he just kept calling it EDM. He's like, yeah, I could play some EDM. I could play some. And I
British accent and all.
He's a black dude from New York, so he just got, he just talks regular. But he just kept saying EDM, and like I wanted to correct him, but I was like, he'll figure it out. And eventually he was like, okay, yeah, I can play house. I'm like, there you go. That's the word I was looking for.
Wait. So is house like sort of, does house sort of view itself outside of that scope of electronic dance music?
I wouldn't say so. It's a subgenre that's well defined.
Okay.
And it's a brand. It's a brand. It has a lot of like vocals. It has like almost a gospel type feel to it, because it comes from Chicago. So it has inherent soul built into it. It's not a lot of like weird synthesizers and, smoke machines going off on these big drops and people's heads exploding. It's a vibe where you can be somewhere in a warehouse downtown for 6.5 hours and, you're just dancing, you're flowing, you're like having conversations with all sorts of cool people that you never met, but you guys are all there on that same rhythm and flow. So it's more so that, but at the end of the day, electronic dance music, that's what this all is. It's using synthesizers, it's using drum machines, it's using samples to make music that is all in essence very similar. But EDM came out of a certain movement, kind of like around 2008, 2012 time period. And then your Avicii's of the world and all those guys, when they started getting big, that was EDM. That Wake Me Up and Levels, like all that stuff.
Calvin Harris,
that's EDM. EDM
So it's a pop version of all
it's
these.
the pop.
Okay.
It's the pop. It's the pop. Whereas house existed in 1985. And techno existed in 1985, basically around the same time. So those were precursors that led into EDM. But electronic dance music, just as a genre, which is very, very, very broad tent. Yeah, house fits in there. EDM is like a part of electronic dance music. It's like a subgenre,
Okay.
That's kind of how it works. Like dance music is almost like the genre, like because you can fit disco in there.
Gotcha.
Anything that people play at the clubs and it's like a little bit faster, and they just kind of mix the songs like back to back to back, and all the songs kind of have the same BPM all night. That's gonna be your dance music.
Yeah. Whoa, broke it down, man. Thanks for telling me. I went to EDC 2019 and it was an amazing experience.
You told me about that. I was so jealous, man.
Yeah, I mean, you've been to a couple. I was jealous, when I went to Party on the Potomac of all the, events people had talked about they've been to. And I was just like, damn, I've never done any of these things.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those badges of honor that people wear. It's like, oh well, I went to there and I saw such and such here.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's part of the culture too, though, because I guess like every set's different.
Yeah. It's so they have this thing called Groove Cruise and this thing called Holy Ship, where basically these people, they rent out a cruise ship, like a Royal Caribbean cruise ship for thousands of people. And it's nothing but a house and techno party. Like
madness.
So you're talking about Party on the Potomac times like 15,000 with pasties everywhere and champagne everywhere and all the food you can eat and and the DJs are living on there, so you're like hanging out with them, like that's like top level right there. That's like
Have you done one of those?
I went with Wayne. We went to Holy Ship, and I had a blast. Like to tell you the truth. So there's the music, and then there's everything else. And Holy Ship is kind of everything else. So I did enjoy it because I got to see a lot of my favorite DJs. First time on a cruise. I felt like I was on the ship for like 5 days after I was off it, so I didn't like that. Like there's certain things where it's like, okay, I could just do this on land. I didn't have to go and do all that and pay $1,000. But it was an experience. But that going there is more so for the party. I'm in this for the actual music and then for the what surrounds that, which is like the vibe and the culture. Going there is more so, you want to just drink a lot and you want to like party with your friends. And I had a great time. But it's not something I would necessarily need to do again as a patron. You know what I'm saying?
It sounds crazy intense, man.
It was too intense for me. I'm a baby. Like, I don't need to like, it was so intense that you would be on the elevator going up and down and people are still like bobbing their heads like they were listening to the music. I mean, it was like music everywhere and people everywhere, and it was a lot. It was fun. It was an experience. I put it like that.
Cool. Okay, burning question before we get into the Kim Thompson prong of this podcast. Burning question about music. Where does trip hop land along the spectrum? Is it still electronic dance music?
It is. Trip hop is. And I mean, funny you bring that up. So a lot of your more, I won't say even mainstream, but as far as like the underground, like house and techno guys, ones who look like
Thievery? Is Thievery trip hop?
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah,
okay.
I would say they're
that's Thievery Corporation, by the way, listeners.
Yeah, they're based out of DC.
18th Street.
18th Street, Marvin. They had a stake in, I think they had like different sort of like combinations of who owned what, but they had a ownership stake in Marvin, the Gibson, which is actually a speakeasy right under Marvin. And but yeah, trip hop definitely falls in there, or like kind of a lo-fi type feel. you know, it definitely does fit in there. I mean, everything has its own lane, and what you'll find, like on Holy Ship, a lot of your main DJs who play like EDM, electronic house, that type of stuff, they would have these alternate sets where they would either play as an alter ego, or they would play like a trip hop or a dubstep, or a trap set. So your A-Track is one that's really good at that. A-Track, it's like A-Trak. So mainly a house DJ, but he's a scratch DJ, really good scratch DJ. He's a hip hop head. So he's the type of guy who can kind of bridge that gap, who can, he can play a house set, and then you'll catch him, the next night he'll be playing, a trip hop set, and he'll drop some dubstep in there. He'll do all sorts of stuff. So, but it does fall in there for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Trip hop was, a consistent go-to for me when I was in college. Nice. Probably doing a little too much of the tetrahydrocannabinol, THC. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Right. And so, I thought it was I love trip hop music, and Massive Attack is, the primary for me. I don't know if Thievery Corporation falls into the genre, but I love their music. And it's a shame that, 18th Street Lounge got, closed, and Marvin too, but yeah, I do like Thievery.
Yeah. So Thievery, man, that's honestly, I want to say Thievery, it's not the way that I really got into this type of music, because it's definitely not how it's loungy,
Right.
But,
right.
Yeah. To this day, that's my go-to if I'm just if I need to relax, and if I need to just kind of get into a good mood where I'm feeling airy, is music like that. So big shout out to them, man. I've seen them twice live, and them boys put on a show. It's basically two brothers that make up Thievery Corporation, and they're based out of DC. They always do a hometown show. Always sells out. They do 3 of them, either 2 in the same night, or they do Friday, Saturday shows. And the great thing about them is they bring up local DC artists, and every song is different. So every song they bring up a different artist, whether it's a singer or whether it's a musician, whether it's a rapper. They have a couple songs that are kind of a reggae type feel. So
they have a lot. Those are the ones that I love. I mean, maybe not a lot.
Those are the best ones. Yeah, they got a lot of those reggae type songs. Yeah. So they bring up the whole reggae band, and they're jamming out. And these guys, they just playing the piano and just playing the instruments that they play. Even kind of just DJing. But they're facilitating a whole vibe for the night, and you can feel it's palpable. It's you feel the essence of what they're doing. And that's kind of how I want to look at what DeepTech does. It's not about who's up there. It's that that vibe. You can sense that vibe, and that the people you're around are good people too.
Yeah.
You're not around some schmucks. You're not around anybody who's trying to get over on you. Yeah. Everybody is there for the right reasons,
Yeah. You say that and I'm I think that's what happened when I listened to a couple of your sets. And I guess, again, sort of going into the psychology thing, I don't know if your music is when people meditate, they kind of get into a certain kind of consciousness, it's very flowy, and I mean, that's kind of how I felt when I listened to your music. Maybe I had some alcohol in my system, some cannabis, maybe I was just vibing regardless. But that's also how I feel with Thievery. When I listen, it's just like you just sort of mellow out into another wavelength. And it's just so smooth and seamless.
Yeah, man. So crazy thing. I'm real big into certain Eastern religions. So Tai Chi, and Buddhism and all. I've always been intrigued with them because they don't look outside for God. They look inside for peace, really, and peace within, that sort of thing. So I'm really big into meditation. I meditate daily, and really trying to get in touch with what's going on inside versus, what do I need to do in the world and what do I need to get from the world? It's like, no, I have what I need here. So yeah, man, like, and you can hear that in their music. There's a lot of Eastern influence in their music. There's a lot of sitars, which is like the Indian guitar where you like sit. I mean, they have a guy who comes, and there's a song, I think it's called, is it Lebanese Blonde? One of their songs, it has a sitar solo in it. And they bring out a guy who sits down like on a big comfy cushion in the middle of the stage. You got thousands of people watching. He's like playing this like sitar lick while they're like playing the song. So yeah, they got that vibe where it's like, we know what we're getting across, and here it is, and it's authentic. And yeah, that's what I shoot for. And I think being in touch with, like sometimes I have sets where I'm just not feeling it, because I'm playing stuff. I don't know what I'm playing. I may be playing new tracks that I haven't played before, stuff that I haven't really listened to, or I'm trying to play to a crowd. Maybe it's not my crowd. And I'm just like, I'm not in it. My mixes are off. It's kind of sloppy, and I'm working on a lot of technical stuff. And, those are things that will happen to you if you're not in the right flow. So it's important. Or, I'm playing a boat party where I have to play freaking, Yo Gotti, and it's like, I feel so old. I'm like, Yo Gotti, I'm trying to think of like relevant rappers, and none come to mind right now. That's just because
the baby.
The baby, basically, yeah.
Lil Baby, actually.
Or like, what's it, like Bad Bunny, or just playing stuff that like, now here's one thing that playing house music does afford you to do, which is awesome, is if you have a good background in like hip hop and trap, R&B and stuff like that, you can find some really cool remixes of like old school hip hop. There's like a lot of really good Nicki Minaj remixes because her voice goes really well with like certain drums.
Yeah, I feel you.
And you could make a hip hop set out of a house set, and now you sort of bridge that gap between what people thought they were going to hear and what they are getting, and you interest the people who didn't know they like house music, but you put some familiar stuff over top of it, and now you gotten their interest just enough where they're intrigued, so now you're kind of like bringing two, disparate things together into one. So yeah, man, but it's about knowing your essence, to your point. It's about being, about thinking, about listening to the tracks. One of the biggest things as a DJ or performer is knowing that not all the stuff that you like is stuff that you should be playing. So I may really like certain tracks and I'll play them out and they just fall flat. They don't do anything to the dance floor. People go and get a drink or go to the bath. They use it as an excuse to go to the bathroom. And in my mind, I'm like, man, it's a good track. But then when I hear it on loudspeakers out where people are trying to enjoy themselves, it's like, oh, this track is actually a downer. It is a good song, but it's a good song to play, while your ass is at home. It's not something that you should play to the masses. So, understanding that, you need to pick the right stuff. And it's not always the stuff that you like best. It's the stuff that fits best,
I gotcha. Okay, so you've touched on a couple things, having abstained from alcohol since June, your meditation practice. This is stuff that is central to Kim Thompson, who you are as just a human. And so I'm gonna break it down real quick. I moved to DC in 2017. I joined the Northwestern University Alumni Club just because I wanted to meet some people. I was really on that wave when I moved to DC. Like I really wanted to be more, I guess you could call it extroverted.
Yeah, be more outgoing.
And I mean,
it's a place to do it too. Honestly, you can't be real. It's not a good place to be an introvert.
Yeah,
you need to like talk to everybody, kind of.
Yeah, I was definitely pushing the boundaries, going to bars by myself and stuff, which is like nerve wracking, but at the same time, a wonderful experience if you have fun. But so I joined the alumni club, and there was a black guy there, and I was like, "Is that a black guy?" And you actually spoke to me first, man, because I'll be on my introverted, nervous stuff, but I'm so glad you did, bro. We like hung out a lot. I joined the softball team. Right. Quick story. You weren't there for the first game of that season when I joined, but I had an excellent, awesome hit, and I ended up getting the MVP for the game.
Nice, man. Nice.
First game.
I did not know that.
But supposedly the trophy was broken. It had to be repaired, so I couldn't take the trophy. I was like, you racist white people. No, I'm kidding. Right. I don't think they're racist.
Oh, no. Those Northwestern people, man, there's some great... It's a great crew, you know, 'cause they're very welcoming. They're like, come as you are, and we'll bring you into our fold, you know. So. Right.
I was just thinking, the one time the black guy wins MVP, he can't take it home. God damn it! But no, I'm just playing.
It was that was a setup. That was a setup for sure.
But yeah, I mean, so and then did we do any other Northwestern things? Maybe not too much, but I mean, but then, after we started hanging out, you invited me to DeepTech stuff, party on the Potomac, and we hung out just in the city, man. I gotta say, I appreciate you just, like I said earlier, welcoming me to the city, to your vibe. It was never like a whole, I guess sometimes with black guys, you gotta like, test them out for a while and sort of,
right.
It was never like that. It was just like, oh, okay, Tunde, you seem cool. Let's hang. And I felt the same. So if I never said it before, thank you so much, man. It was so great to have someone like you, in DC who was connected, but also a cool ass dude. And, you showed me around the city, it was like just having like a college friend there.
Yeah, man, so you're very welcome. Like, I would want somebody doing that, like, for me or for definitely. The homie. And it's like, when you're in the sort of, I guess, entertainment business, like you gotta be a real person. You can't be out here and try to be too cool, because you can, but I can't. I guess I'll put it like that. I can't do that. So
yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. And, so, I was only in DC for a couple months, I guess, maybe like 9 months, but we had a great time. But what I would like to ask you about is not DC. We'll get to DC later, but I want to ask you about Detroit, your hometown. Detroit hustles harder. I think I've seen you wear that hat a couple of times. Dope hat.
Yeah, man.
Or maybe a shirt. But
fanny pack and shirt.
Oh, okay.
And stickers, like the whole get up, man.
That's tight.
Yeah.
Tell me about Detroit, I guess in the context of the pandemic, Detroit in recent years has been the poster child for like, American cities that have sort of been on a downfall. Knowing you, I know that you have a lot of love for Detroit and you don't look at it that way. So just tell me how do you, like, what's good with home, for you?
Yeah. So that's a great question, man. Home is where the heart is. Home is where my family is. So I grew up there. Actually, fun fact, my grandmother is from DC. And that's where my dad was born, and he moved to Detroit when they were 6. She got a job working at Ford, so as far as Detroit goes, it's still a very blue collar town. I was back there around the Thanksgiving time period to visit family. It's it's on lockdown like everywhere else. The thing about Detroit is it's on the upswing. It's definitely bottomed out. So the downtown area is pretty much sewn up. Now, I'm guessing that this pandemic thing is sort of shaking things up. I'm sure a lot of businesses are closed, like they have everywhere. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens when it reopens, because when I was going back, it was like boomtown basically in downtown and in certain pockets that were already viable, and then your neighborhoods that had been decimated were still decimated, but because when, basically Detroit bottomed out when the automotive industry in America started failing. Mm-hmm. Just because our investment was in the wrong places, and then when the housing market crashed, it crashed, just completely in Detroit because people were highly over leveraged and didn't have any money. Also, a lot of people were using bank loans to buy up a lot of houses, and then they just had all these houses sitting there and they had to let them go into foreclosure. So, whole city blocks of Detroit neighborhoods have been reclaimed by like forests, to the point where they're doing like urban farming, not like, a couple plots of land, but like farms, like tractors, not like people with, you know, a little garden and take your kid out to get some tomatoes, but like sustainable, we're like growing produce type shit, you know? So it's an interesting place in all of those things, and it's still a black city. You know, it's still upper 80% black people in the entire Detroit proper city. So you still have that us versus them mentality. You still have the hood. You still have lots of people gang banging, getting shot, drugs, addiction. You know, you have all of that stuff, but then you have a city that is coming back. And as far as I'm concerned, you have a city that is getting back relevant to its house and techno roots. You know, so Detroit has this festival called Movement. It actually started out, it was called the Detroit Electronic Music Festival. Started out, I think, maybe 1999 or 2000. So it's been running for 20 years. You know, they, of course, had to cancel it last year, canceled it this year. But it happens every Memorial Day weekend, so that Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And basically the who's who of house and techno play there. So, you know, not any of your Aviciis and none of that stuff, like the real dudes, the underground stuff. And people come from everywhere. They come from Berlin. They come from, obviously, Canada. You know, so they come from all over Europe, South America. It's almost like a pilgrimage to come to Movement, you know. And they come, the party goes until, you know, whenever, noon until like midnight. And then the after party start at like 10 p.m. and they go until like the next day till like noon, you know. So it's never ending. You're always going to something. But yeah, man, you know, that's the Motor City, you know. And you know, you're talking about Motown, and you're talking about, you know, the whole hip hop thing, Eminem, and then the guys kind of follow him, Royce the 5'9". There is that huge, you know, musical element to the city in and of itself, and then there's that working class mentality, and all of that comes together, you know. So that's what Detroit is for me. It's just like all of that stuff.
Okay, so you said back to the house roots or techno roots. Is Detroit like an origination city for that type of music?
It is, man. It is. So, you know, there are guys. There's these guys that call it the Belleville Three. Kevin Saunders and Juan Atkins, and I always forget the other guy's name. Oh, Derek May. Okay. And funny enough, Derek May, he's one of the guys who's getting like, he's in a whole bunch of mess over harassing women and potentially assaulting women. But these guys are considered basically the originators of techno music.
Wow.
You know, yeah. So
Straight from Detroit.
Because here's what happened. You got a lot of like working class black dudes who they get their hands on this equipment. So they get their hand on Roland drum machines, and they get their hand on Roland and Korg synthesizers, you know, and a lot of them come from gospel background, so they know how to play the drums, so they can program it easily, you know. They know how to play the keys because they were playing in the church. So now all they're doing is doing a couple little chord stabs, you know, that they took from church, but they sped it up to where it's going really fast. And really, I mean, church music can get fast, and you know, sort of your like Southern Baptist and your black people church music, you know, when people start getting the Holy Ghost, it gets up there, and people, you know, they dancing in the aisle. So
right,
it was nothing new. It was just the fact that they took the technology, they took the urban decay that they saw around them. You know, they took, I mean, when I hear techno, I think of a train, or I think of like a stamping plant where it's just a thing just stamping over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. You know, that's what I hear. And that's what these guys, that's what they were taking. They were taking that struggle, and they were taking the fact that they were kind of weirdos, because everybody was more so going and, you know, trying to be cool and the ladies' man and all that, and wearing, you know, the hair long. And these guys are like, man, I like this drum machine better, you know, so I'm going to like mess with this drum machine. And we like these synthesizers, and they just like mash that stuff together, and people loved it. And, you know, you can take that same beat and play it for 12 hours. And if people are in the right element, they will enjoy it. So yeah, Detroit started that. It quickly got hijacked, and, you know, basically got shipped over to Europe and it's been repackaged over and over again. But people who know, they know where it started. And that doesn't mean that, like, you also had Kraftwerk in Germany. And these guys, they were doing a lot of the same stuff, but it wasn't as fast. It wasn't as clean. It was just a lot more melodic, and they were trying to like level it. In Detroit, we just need this drum, and we're going to just freak the drum machine, and we're going to put 1 or 2 cents on it, and that's it. That's the song, and it was minimalistic. It was very like, we got a factory, we got some people working the factory, and we got some machines, and we have some metal, and that's it, in a bathroom. There's no couches. You're not about to sit down. You're about to work, and then you're about to put in that work, point blank. That's kind of what techno is putting in that work. It's not about being in the VIP. It's not about being cool. It's about going in.
I gotcha. Yeah, I guess, it gets lost in the history of Black people, which I don't, claim to be an expert on or anything. But, going back to slave days and times of disenfranchisement, like you see a lot of resourcefulness, like even with the history of hip hop, it's like, people in New York who were just, really had nothing but their voices, and they made beats and they started rapping over those beats. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it sounds like a very similar story in the sense that it was like really coming with not that much, but creating something that was a lot and that was great.
Yeah, man. I mean, so these guys have created something that, techno is all over the world.
Right.
There's lots of documentaries like on YouTube about it and stuff, but it's all over the world, man. I mean, and I just like, I'll sit here on a Friday because, can't go out anymore, and I'll watch like sets of techno artists. And there's this woman named Fernanda Martins, and she's playing some hard techno. But this woman is out of, I believe that she's from Spain, right? So she's from Spain, and she was playing this set in Chile at this art museum for this brand, maybe Mixmag or one of these big brands that like puts on, events, and so like a boiler room type thing. But I mean, think about how crazy that is. This music started from a couple of Black boys in Detroit with drum machines, so now you have Spaniards playing it in Chile in an art museum and going hard,
Yep.
I mean, so it's something that has spanned. That's why I don't want to be like, oh, this is for us. And a lot of people are kind of like, they get territorial. It's not a territorial thing. It's just it's an acknowledgement type thing. And the acknowledgement for me isn't there. So the reason I'm doing this, other than the fact that I love it, is also like, you're going to acknowledge that this existed before all this other shit that you like was there, because there's always somebody that paid that previous price, and if people don't acknowledge that and they just want to have fun and just like, oh, it's just about the vibes, man. Like maybe for you, because your people didn't like, put in all this work just for it to kind of be taken away from them, so it is deeper. But at the end of the day, it's also like you can't take it too serious, because then you can't have the right amount of fun. And house and techno was always about the guys having fun with what they were doing. They loved it, but they had fun. They wouldn't do it if it was just a job, because they had jobs and they hated the jobs. And now they don't have to work them anymore. Those guys are rich or taken care of for the most part. So it's deep, man. It is deep.
Gotcha. Appreciate you sharing some of that background for me and the podcast, #RTBTH. Okay, let's go back to DC. And you touched on some things, but I'll share something that I thought earlier on in the pandemic, which is I felt like there's going to be a handful of people, specifically introverts, which I do think I am. Actually, I think I'm an ambivert. I just learned that not too long ago, which ambivert. Is
okay, interesting.
Yeah, because I do have some really
you're just a vert. I'm a vert.
Right, just a vert.
I'm a vert.
I do have some like very extroverted components that I seem to neglect sometimes, but anyway. I was of the mindset that people would like, there's going to be a handful of people who actually thrive in the pandemic just because you have so much more time to just like reflect and think about like your routine and develop a routine that, I mean, redeveloping a routine because of all the changes. You know, I know a lot of people are struggling, you know, with sort of like isolation and, you know, the lack of social contact, like actual physical social contact. But I have a feeling you have thrived. You mentioned meditating, not drinking. Does that sound right? Like, do you feel like you're in a good place?
You're right, brother. Like, I'm glad you picked up on that. And I feel like people who really know me have picked up on that. Like, I'm in a great place. I'm not gonna lie.
That's good.
And
can you tell us?
Good.
Can you share the secret so we can help others get there?
The secret is I decided to be me and not be like a version of me for anybody else, you know. And you know, I'm not young, but I'm not old. Like, I'm gonna be 36 this year, so I have a good idea of who I am, you know, and who I'm not. I was dating someone pre-pandemic, and we dated for, you know, a couple years, and we actually both broke up in October, and it's been one of the best things for me. Probably for her, I don't really know, but like, I mean, she's like an opera singer, so you know, you got this DJ, and then you got this opera singer, and it's like on the surface, it's like, okay, you both do music, so that's interesting, but I mean, it's vastly different, you know, and we were just, it just wasn't gonna work, you know, because she needs to go to sleep by like 9 p.m. every night and not be around alcohol, you know, and 9 p.m. for me is like, okay, where am I going? You know, it's like, that's like the start of the night. So, you know, I've been able to, you know, get in my own space, you know, to where I can meditate, I can make music, I can DJ for 8 hours if I need to, or I can just I can watch, you know, I don't even have Netflix anymore. So I'm just like in the zone to where I can focus on all these things. And it becomes a lifestyle more than something that I do, you know. So it's like, you know, I can be Spclk, or I can be that guy in DeepTech. It's not like, okay, I have to go and do this. Some of it is drudgery, you know, some of it is like pulling teeth. That's just part of anything in life, you know. So is making your breakfast in the morning, unless you really like making it, you know. We all have to do things that we don't want to do, but I've been able to minimize that to, it's like, if I don't want to do it, I really don't have to do it unless it's like necessary, you know. Even going to work, it's like, I love what I do for work, so it's not even really like work all the time. Sometimes I'd rather not go, but, you know, if I have to go anywhere, I'd rather go somewhere where it's, you know, something that I do enjoy. So, yeah, man, I've been able, kind of like I said earlier, I've been able to shed the stuff that doesn't fit, you know. And so now when I come into a situation, like for instance, doing this with you, this is something I would gladly do. But if it was something like that didn't fit, I'd be like, no, I don't have to do this, you know. And I'm okay. My boy Wayne, you know, God bless him, he always looks for opportunities for me or for us. So he was like, hey, you know, there's some people and they need a DJ to do a wedding. They hit me up. Obviously I can't do it because I'm here. Why don't you do it? And, you know, I mean, this is going to be like anywhere between, let's say, $1,000, $1,500. So that's
not bad.
Not bad for like a week. But here's the thing that you don't see, right? You don't see the fact that you got to get DJ insurance and the fact that you got to like have all these. You basically become a vendor. So you're not a DJ. You're an MC. You're a sound guy. You're a quasi light guy. You got to like coordinate with all these people. So, you know, I told him no, like, I'm not going to be a wedding DJ, even though it can make money. You know, it's not in my wheelhouse of what I'm going for. And the funny thing after that, he was like, okay, I'll get DJ Squirrel to do it. You know, and that was a perfect, like, sort of representation. I was like, yeah, let DJ Squirrel be the squirrel and, like, do some squirrel shit. You know, like, I'm not doing no squirrels. DJ Squirrel's the perfect guy to do their wedding. Like, but Spclk is not a wedding DJ unless it's for my homie, you know. And I did actually funny enough, it was social distance and they had like all the right precautions in place. But my homie, he did get married during the pandemic in September, and I did his wedding, you know. But he's the homie. He throws disco parties in DC, so I got to play disco music, and I got to hang out with people who are my friends anyway. So like, if I want to do a wedding, it's gonna be for the guy who wants to hear disco music at his wedding. It's not gonna be for, you know, they want to hear twist and shout and all that stuff. Like, that's not where it's at. So, you know, I have been thriving, but that's because I've been focused on those things that bring me joy. And I've been sort of like all that other stuff I just let fall off because I'm looking at, you know, I started playing the bass. That's interesting. Like,
gotcha.
Man, you know, played piano as a kid, always wanted to play guitar, but I could never get the hang of the guitar because it's like so many strings and it's like I want to do all this and I want to do that. Never ever even considered that the bass existed. Like, I kind of knew. I was like, why is this guitar so big? Like, what do you do with it, you know? And like, I'm working at Guitar Center for like a year and a half. Never thought to even pick up a bass. And one day I just looked over there. I was like, that's interesting. Like, what about the bass? And then I started playing. And I was like, oh yeah, this is it. This is what I was supposed to be doing like the whole time. You know, I'm like meant to be a bass player. Like, I got rhythm. I got long fingers. I got like big hands. It's like, you know, so it's like, yeah, you may want to be a guitar player, but maybe it's bass guitar, you know, or you may want to be this, but maybe like if you just like turn to the left, you'll see that, you know, you think you like this type of girl, maybe that's not for you, but what about that type? Like, maybe that is your type and you don't even know, you know. So it's like letting the shit come to me and then be like, yeah, you know, accepting it. Or if it comes and it's not right, like, no, that's not right, buddy. You know, pass that off to DJ Squirrel. Let him do that. You know? DJ
Squirrel.
He literally texted me that right after I said no. He's like, okay, that's fine. I'll get DJ Squirrel to do it. I was like, perfect. DJ Squirrel gets to make, like, he gets to store up his nuts for the winter, and like I get to focus on like my like actual shit that matters. You know.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw some psychology at you real quick. But there is a theory called the Broaden and Build theory of positive emotions. But Barbara Fredrickson is the originator. UNC, she's at UNC, University of North Carolina, and basically it's like, you know, positive emotions allow us humans to have more expanded thought patterns and behaviors that are sort of like broad, you know, like there's a lot of, like, if you're walking in a field, it's like the whole field is open for you and you can explore. Whereas when we're dealing with negativity and stress and distress, we have tunnel vision, you know, so it's like we're just walking in a tunnel, you know. Right. And so that I thought of that because it sounds like you were able to get yourself in a good place with the meditation, you know, I guess maybe leaving the girlfriend as well, you know, other things, getting really involved with the music. And as you said, going deep with it, not just like playing for whatever, but, you know, it's like a lifestyle, as you said. And perhaps maybe you were able to broaden your perspective to the bass, and then one day it just like lit up, you know, like in your field of vision, like, what is this shiny, beautiful thing in front of me that I've never looked at before? It's like you were in a place in your mind and your state of living where you could broaden yourself to those new experiences.
Yeah, man, I you kind of hitting the nail on the head, you know, because it's the type of thing when you sort of empty yourself, then you allow yourself to you allow things that are around you just to like stand out more, I guess. So definitely that's what's been happening, you know. I've been able to like drop the stuff, most of the stuff that just doesn't really pertain to me, and then it's almost like cutting the grass. You know, it's like there's all these things that are there, you know, some good, some bad. There's lots of things in the grass that are there, and you can't really see them until you cut it. So it's like I've been cutting the grass, just of my life, you know. I think that another thing that you mentioned earlier is like this whole pandemic has made people everyone they've had to be like really introspective. You don't really have a choice because you're not around a bunch of people and you can't distract yourself. And I'm an extrovert, but I get energy I'm an introvert in that I get energy off of hanging out with myself and being with my thoughts. So being forced to like not go to parties, not hang out with a bunch of people, not DJ with a bunch of people. I've been forced to spend time on myself, and it's been great. It's been great because I actually, so with the whole not drinking thing, I did talk to a counselor about it. And, I definitely, number one, you're into psychology. I'm actually a psych. I was a psych undergrad at Northwestern. But
yeah.
Oh yeah. I highly encourage people to talk to somebody.
Whoa. Sorry to cut you off. Can you say that again, please? Say it for the people in the back. Say
it for the people who like just are like, this is hitting their energy. Like they're not even listening. They're just like the vibrations are like hitting them somewhere. Yeah, I highly encourage people to talk to someone, man.
Yes.
Especially in this day and age, stigma or not, stigma be dead, especially young black men, because there's a huge stigma for us to keep our feelings to ourselves and to be hard. And 100%. You can be hard in your own way and you can deliver that energy, but it needs to be authentic, and you can't have a whole bunch of stuff repressed, because then you're going to start taking it out on yourself and other people, and that'll lead to, bad consequences that you don't. I met this gentleman who lives in like one of the neighborhoods in DC. This man is 57. So my parents are they're turning 60 this year. He looks like he's about 15, 20 years older than my parents. The man has been out of prison for 2 years. He was locked up for 43 years.
Lord.
Of his life. 57. Right? So, you got to think. He got caught with several kilos of cocaine, so he did, but he's been locked up for what I say, 43 years of his life. For 43 years of his life, he's been, behind bars. I asked him, I was like, they say that you only do, the only 2 days you do are the day you go in and the day you go out. He was like, I did 43 years, so it's no joke, so as a young black man, it's like, get that stuff dealt with so you're not wasting so you don't have to deal with that behind bars. Do it while you're free and you can go out and do things, as you please. But yeah, man, I talked to, it was via phone. It was like via video, because you can't meet in person and talk to this great guy out of like Iowa or somewhere. And, it wasn't anything where like I have these like super big issues and I need to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. It was simple stuff. It was like, you're probably drinking because you're in an environment where drinks are prevalent, and sure, you're a DJ and you're going to be there, but you don't have to drink, One of the things that I use now is like, bring your own drink with you. Like, I like drinking carbonated water. So it's like, when I go places now, I have like water. So people are like, oh, you want a beer? I'm like, no, I have a drink. Easiest way for people, they'll just say, okay. Nobody's going to like, be like, well, take this anyway. They're just like, oh, okay. It's like little simple stuff. It's just
so much peer pressure with drinking. It's so crazy.
Much peer pressure, man. So much, and to the point, but like, I don't care anymore because, I know what I'm doing. So it's like,
right.
I already know where that leads, and I've been there enough times to know it's like, I don't have a problem with drinking. It's just that like when you drink, you do stuff that you may or may not be proud of,
For sure.
Minus the fact that the next day you're going to feel like crap. So,
yeah. And the only way I've realized like to get over the hangover stuff is to drink consistently.
Right. And then that's what you don't want to be. And then now you become someone who's drinking a lot.
Right. Right.
So, but yeah, talking to somebody, man.
Yeah.
It got to the point where he was like, he asked me, because I was like, yo, I'm spending a lot of money on this, but I'm going to just, go a little bit longer. And he was like, so I want to ask you, how do you feel about our sessions, And basically that was his way of saying, you don't really need me anymore. You know, like you needed this, but you don't need it anymore, you know. But it is good to know that when you need something, you can go and get it, and it shouldn't be a big deal. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man, I thank you so much for saying that on the podcast. I don't really like talk about, you know, people going and getting mental health too much on this podcast. I try to say it, you know, when I'm talking to people in person, but I will just go ahead and like kind of try to lay out my perspective. You know, now that we're talking about it, I'll use this opportunity to try to be a little bit more detailed, but this is it. And the part of the reason why I'm not like super gung ho about it is because it's not easy. It is not easy to get counseling.
It's not.
When you're talking about insurance, you know, there's not parity, I guess they call it, with medical services and mental health services. So insurance doesn't always like cover things quite as like straightforward as it would be with medical services. Also, there's another challenge of just your personal self getting into it. Like, you know, it's one thing if you need to go get surgery. It's another thing if you need to like go spend an hour talking to someone about things intimately. Like, you can easily blow that off. Again, I don't blame people. I really don't. Like, even myself, I want to see a counselor. I want it to be in person. So I guess that's why I haven't like fully pressed forward with it. But, you know, even myself, I am a mental health professional. I am training to be a psychologist, and I'm like being lazy about it, I guess, you know. And another thing that I think people struggle with is that if you don't find the right therapist the first time, that's pretty taxing, you know, if you have sort of spoken to someone a lot about, you know, personal things, and then you find out that, okay, maybe it's not working out. But this is the fundamental sort of like takeaway for going to get counseling. We deal with so many thoughts, feelings, and these are interconnected with behaviors. But the thing is that they're so compacted into your mind and your head, you know, particularly the personal, intimate experiences that you don't talk to someone about. Now, if you have a spouse or your parents who you talk to these things about, okay, perhaps that's a good thing. But, you know, the relationship with a counselor allows you to talk about and, you know, delve into things that are very deeply personal. And by turning those experiences into words, it helps you navigate it so much better. That regardless of anything else, if you're dealing with addiction or depression, or if you're not, at the bottom level, that's what I think is when you sort of transcribe these challenging experiences, whether it's using alcohol or, you know, family issues, if you transcribe it to words, that reframes it. And I think that's the fundamental thing. And I think that's kind of what you were getting at. So thank you, Kim, for bringing that conversation onto the podcast. And I also agree, there's a bit of a reluctance, I guess, for black men, not just in therapy, but I was called sensitive by another black man the other day over text. And I was just like, I don't even know why you said that. I don't see anything wrong with being sensitive, but that's part of the culture, unfortunately. So once more, Kim, thank you for talking about that on the podcast.
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure. I think it is something that needs to be talked about. And you know, it's also something that's big in the DJ world. I mean, Avicii committed suicide. You know, there's a guy from this area here. He was blowing up, played EDC. You know, he was probably like, he was under 25. He committed suicide. His name was I.O.
Damn.
You know, this guy named Eric Murillo, he was one of the guys who was out here abusing women and date raping them and all sorts of stuff. He ended up overdosing and dying, like a black guy down in Miami, you know. So in the DJ world, there is this rampant abuse, and, you know, mental health is a huge issue. Even if you're just a normal person, the fact that if you're big, that you're traveling around to all these different places, you know, the parties are late night parties. So yeah, for the guy going to the club, it's fun on a Friday night, you know, to go out and stay up to 6 or whatever. But for the DJ to have to do that, stay up till 7, and then try to get some sleep and then do it the next night and the next night, like, you know, we're not supposed to live like that. So
yep,
it is, you know, a lot of these guys end up getting depressed because it's like you get the high of being up on their stage and everybody loves you, and then you go back to your house and it's like your cat, you know, and it's like, man, you know, where did the good time go? I want that, you know, because we do all sort of thrive off of that praise, you know, either from an individual or from the masses or whatever. More or less, we all thrive off of being acknowledged as like being special, you know.
Absolutely.
And so I think that you gotta really look at that, you know, and if talking to somebody helps. To your point, man, like here's something, something simple, right? You know, talking to a counselor, he's like, you know, there's this acronym, it's called HALT, HALT, and it's a good one to use to notice, like, if you feel yourself craving a drink, understanding where you fall in, and it stands for hungry, angry, lonely, and tired, you know, and it's basically like people tend to drink when they fall, you know, into one of those things. And I mean, it doesn't have to be like I'm lonely, so I drink. It could be like kind of like to your aspect, like you drink socially, right? So it's more of a social aspect to drinking, you know. I think for me, a lot of times it was like I was either hungry or tired. You know, it's like I'm out the night before, you know, I got like 4 hours of sleep, maybe had to work. Now I'm back DJing. And I need something to pump me up. So it's like, let me get a Red Bull and vodka, you know? And then it does the trick, you know? But then now 4 Red Bull and vodka later, where am I? So, you know, being able to just have that tool, you know, like talking with somebody, being able to put words to something, having an actual tool to use when you're in the situation, you know, now I can be like, man, yeah, I'm tired, you know? So I need to acknowledge I'm tired, you know, and not just go to a drink because it's going to help me stay up, you know?
Right.
Or I'm angry. Let me not go to the bar angry. Let me just sit at home and pace and turn my phone off and eventually get to sleep. I had to do that last night. I was angry about 3 different things, 3 different people. And I was like, y'all are doing me in right now. So I turned my phone off and like put on some chill music and like stretched out and then went to sleep, you know? Previously, I probably would have had a drink, you know. So it's like,
shoot, I'm about to go have a drink just because you told me.
It does that to you, doesn't it? It's like, okay, yeah, you're making a lot of sense. So let me go get a pint real quick.
Yeah. Okay, Kim, you know, we had a great podcast, man. Thank you so much. Again, this is the Where Are They Now segment of Real Talk Beyond the Headlines. All right, so one last thing that I'm gonna bring up, you know, and I guess I can jump into the conversation too, because we're all in the dark about this, which is, what is the future going to look like? And I'm asking you specifically with DeepTech on the Potomac, getting back in a bar and running some sets. Cause you know, presumably you're not going to give up on that life because it's your passion. But right now the world just ain't letting us do it. You know, I'm like sort of at odds with whether, you know, we have to let people just take the risk that they want to take, you know, and but then at the same time, if you contract the virus and you spread it, you know, but I want people to congregate again. You know, perhaps maybe I'm a little bit biased because of my mental health orientation, but connection, you know, personal in-person connection, I think is essential for humans. And, you know, I have people that I see and hang out with like in person, you know, but it's not the same as going to a bar, having someone like Spclk playing a set, you know, get into a vibe with a bunch of people, hugs, kisses, whatnot. What do you think how are you what's your game plan? Basically, what's your game plan for the next 6-ish months?
That's a real good question. You know, I've been basically in a mode of observation, you know, so observing what's going on where, who's doing what, you know, like you look at as far as the particular scene that I'm in that house techno scene, Miami, like they're pretty much open. Like their capacity is maybe 40-50% at their clubs. So that means you can go to a club. You know, New York City isn't there yet, but in New Jersey, you can do things at some of their like big clubs. So like think like Jersey Shore type places, but they're kind of being taken over by the guys who actually are booking good DJs. and so they're doing stuff. And then, out in LA, they're doing like the drive-in type things and trust me that there's also an underground, because this whole scene started in the underground. So there is an underground that exists that's probably doing stuff. And most people who are just surface level, who aren't in the know, they don't really know about. So stuff is active. But what I'm basically doing is understanding, okay, who's who, what's what, and where are the opportunities, where were we? So, one thing that we've been good at, and I've been good at, is identifying locations that are willing to have us and that are easily accessible for our fans, so that we can have different venues and we can play our events. We don't have to be tied to one venue. So we can kind of bounce around, and people are like, oh, you guys are going to be here this weekend, you're going to be there that weekend. So it gives people variety, it gives a different vibe. So I've been maintaining those relationships with the venue owners and with the people who are the gatekeepers. As far as the boat, I reached out to the boat lady. I was like, hey, just want to let you know, we're still interested in working with you. So, she's like, oh yeah, we definitely want to work with you guys. I'm never leaving the company. So it's relationship management. Since you can't talk to people in person, you still have to, stay in touch with people. And I do it, because I actually enjoy these people. I have good relationships with them, even if it's for the business. It's also, I like them. I don't do business with people I don't like. So even if it was the best club in DC, if the people were jerks and I wouldn't get that close to them. I do what I had to do to just get in there if I wanted to, but I'm not trying to buddy up with them. But, some of these places, I actually like the owners. We just kick back and chill. I go and visit them when it's an off night. I was going to their clubs before I was even a DJ. So that's what we're in the process of doing, is understanding where are the opportunities, while we already nurture what we're doing, and having a brand, whether that be Spclk, which is its own brand, or whether it's DeepTech, having that brand gives us leverage, so that when we talk to people, we're not just saying hey man, this is my idea. It's oh, by the way, here's the track record. And all they got to do is go on Instagram or go on Facebook or Eventbrite and see all the events and be like, oh, damn, okay. Or see the people that we booked, okay, you guys booked them. All right, that means, that already gets you over the proverbial hump. So what's going to happen, man, is things are going to slowly but surely reopen. Like I said, in Virginia, they're already doing parties. So whether it's table service only, but there are DJs there, or if it's more of kind of a club where it's okay, you have your table, you can dance around that, and you got the lights and everything. It exists already. So that's coming back. As this vaccine gets into people's bodies and things open up their capacity more and more, it's going to, the landscape is going to broaden. But since all these venues close, the competition is going to be fierce. And so it's man, you already have had to you can't start lining shit up now. You had to line your stuff up months ago to be in position to be able to line yourself up now. And some people have given themselves, because they've taken risks, quite frankly. Whether they've done underground parties or house parties, or they've done things, in different states where it allows you to do things. You got to take risks. Now, if you have a family, if you got, older people who are relying on you, you can't necessarily take those risks, and that's totally understandable. Or you're just really health conscious and, you're really following the guidelines, and I get all that. And I've been that guy, I'm still that guy too, but I got to go to work. I work at Guitar Center. They just let people in. It's not like we're doing temperature checks at the door. So it's man, people are working. People are going to work. It's not people, it's just I get it. When you start fraternizing, you add alcohol and you add late nights, people just get really lax. So
pretty much, yeah.
But these things, it's changing, and it's about to start changing quickly. New York's about to start to reopen. And DC is probably going to be not too far behind. So basically, I'm not waiting, I'm planning, and like I said, I got the boat lined up. I have venues in play so that when things do turn, we're ready. We got our own sound system, so if we need to bring our own sound, so be it, and we'll be ahead of the game because we've been thinking about this for a while. You know what I'm saying? So it'll be different. It's going to be more fierce. The guys who you mentioned, you went to EDC in Las Vegas, right?
Yeah.
The guy who owns that, they bought two of the biggest nightclubs in DC, Soundcheck and Echo Stage, and they also bought the group that basically runs those, which is called Glow DC. So
they're bullish.
Oh yeah, this is a bull, man. It's a bear, and it's about to turn into a bull market.
Right.
Basically, people like shut the stuff down, and now people are kind of like getting what they can, because when it opens up, it's going to be fewer spots, more people, and it's going to be like kind of more exclusive, and to be able to get in there and play, like you're going to need to be connected with the people, with the real and right people, so
right.
It's like chess, man. It's like playing a game of chess. That's basically what it's like.
Okay, my man. That's 2 hours, which I appreciate so much. Thank you for your time.
It's gone by fast, man. It's been like one of my DJ sets. Like I didn't even know we started.
Yeah.
To tell you the truth.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you could say that podcasting and DJing are like sort of our, passions for sound. And that's how it is usually for me too. Like I do a podcast, it's like 2 hours and it's like nothing, but you said something about connections, and I guess maybe this is why we gravitated towards each other, was that we are dudes that are just really trying to get to know people, learn, know people intimately, like build a connection. So it sounds like you're putting that skill to use for the business, which I appreciate a lot. The segment is Where Are They Now, Kim? Spclk. Is your DJ name Spclk or Spclk Music?
So it's Spclk. The Spclk Music is basically, all of the handles. And it's funny, on Gmail it's with the K because the special Spclk Music with the C was taken. Like I don't know who the hell did that, but I'm like, what? Like who had this idea before me? So there's another dude, another Spclk or whatever he calls himself, music guy roaming around here.
Oh,
but no,
fuck
yeah, it's
no, I'm kidding.
Yeah, maybe we'll have to do a collab. But it's just Spclk. No DJ name, because like Spclk is gonna also be the bass player and just like the dude. You know what I'm saying? So
I gotcha. Okay, cool. This is Real Talk Beyond the Headlines. We had Kim on, also known as Spclk. You can check him out at Spclk Music. Also, DeepTech Recordings.com. Is that right?
DTRecordings.com. Sell merch on there. Shout out to the merch. Shameless plug for that. But yeah, man. And you can just find us DeepTech DC, DeepTech SD for San Diego, and DeepTech Recordings all across the web. We out here.
We out here. #RTBTH. Peace.
Peace out. Appreciate it, man.